Thank you so much for having us this morning. It's great to be part of such a wonderful week for Trigg County. And thank you, Bob Lawrence. He literally invited me in February to be here. So thanks for letting me be part of this. As the new Commissioner of Agriculture, I get to follow in the footsteps of some really strong leaders in our state. And last year, I literally drove 65,000 miles across Kentucky without leaving the state when we were campaigning. And when I traveled, I literally got to see that farming and agriculture has an economic impact in every single community, every single town, and every single county across our state. And when I picked up 20 pounds on my Kentucky Proud Belly last year, one thing was resonating across the state is that we've had some strong leadership in agriculture. And if you ask me who's run the office of the Ag Department the best, two names come to mind. One's Billy Ray Smith, did a great job in the late 90s, early 2000s. The other one is Commissioner James Comer. He left the Department of Agriculture in great shape, and I really hope that I can lead by example and do as good a job as those two individuals. And James Comer will be a great member of Congress here in just a few weeks. So congratulations and thank you for your leadership in agriculture. That was a great breakfast. And I like to say that's a great Kentucky Proud breakfast. So thank you for those who prepared this, those who helped grow the food. And I, as Agriculture Commissioner, we always want to say thank you. And after watching last night's presidential debate, I finally had my appetite back this morning to eat a little bit. But it's been a challenging first year. We've had a lot of issues in agriculture. In my area of the state, the largest stockyards basically in the eastern United States burnt to the ground. Bluegrass stockyards, we're helping them get back up on their feet. We've had a lot of conferences. We went through a budget cycle. With a lot of good agriculture bills were passed. We actually had a budget cut at the Department of Agriculture, but we're not complaining about it. We are going to continue to do more with less. And if you meet a farmer, they know how to do more with less. You just look at the duct tape that they carry around with them. They're constantly able to deal with the situation that they've been handed. And that's what we're going to do in Frankfort. Agriculture is an industry that is often misunderstood, especially on the national level. There's a lot of people who just simply don't know how food travels from that farm gate to their dinner plate anymore. And a lot of that has to do with how efficient and how good American farmers are. And let me give you a statistic. I know we got some folks here from different backgrounds. Try to apply this statistic to your business. If you go back 50 years in American history and you look at where agriculture was then to where agriculture is today, we are producing twice as much food with 22 million less workers, and we're only farming 75% of the land that we used to. So try to name another business where you double your output with drastically less inputs and drastically less people running those organizations. And it's hard to find one that has the efficiency that American agriculture has. So it's a source of pride for us. We are part of a family farm state. We have 76,000 farms across Kentucky. Nearly 400 of those are right here in Trigg County. And your average farm size here in Trigg County is well over 300 acres. And the average farm size is 160. So there's a lot to be proud of in your community. And this festival you're celebrating this week is a highlight of that. When you look at the economic impact of agriculture, it's one that's really hard to measure. But most studies will say that agriculture is responsible for at least 1 in 5 jobs in Kentucky and in the United States. And for you all in this part of the area of the state, this is a special place for agriculture because your production is so high. And let me give you a statistic a lot of folks may not realize. How many of you all have had a biscuit from McDonald's? There's some fibbers out there. I think we've all had a biscuit from McDonald's. That biscuit almost certainly came from the next county over as processed at Seymour Milling. That's what we call value added. When you add value to that crop out of the field, whether it's livestock or grain, you're taking that raw material and turning it into an intermediate or final product. When you fill up your tank with gas, about 10% of that is ethanol. An ethanol plant right next door, which a lot of your farmers here participate with, are responsible for supplying the greater Nashville area with ethanol. And that's another source of pride that Western Kentucky has that is really, really something the rest of the state doesn't have. And at the Department of Agriculture, it's more than just farms. We're about economic development. Under the leadership of James Comer, we reintroduced a crop that used to be grown prevalently across our state, industrial hemp. It's a crop that connects our past to our future. And because of the hemp program, which we're continuing this next year, there are some farmers who are looking at a new way to run their business. There's more jobs being created, and there's more investment in our state because we are looking at different opportunities for our farmers. We're also looking at hops. The craft beer industry is growing at about 600% a year. In 1980, there were only about 50 craft breweries in the entire country. Now there's over 6,000. We know hops can be grown in Kentucky, so we're challenging our researchers at University of Kentucky and Western to see whether or not hops is a viable crop for our farmers. We're also encouraging our distilleries. We have a thriving bourbon industry in our state. We're encouraging them to put more Kentucky grain into Kentucky bourbon. And that's a conversation we're having with every single distillery across our state, and we're getting good response. You know, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is just how challenging agriculture can be for farmers. When you meet a farmer, you know, they're more than likely going to talk about the weather. If you ever meet a farmer that's not complaining about the weather, then you know something really is wrong. But there are some major challenges out there, and one of them are low commodity prices. Right now, agriculture is experiencing we're coming off of historic highs in our grain market. Our cattle industry is going through major contractions right now. There is some serious economic hurt this year in Kentucky agriculture because of low commodity prices, low livestock prices. And so that is a fluctuation that farmers have to deal with, that when they put their crop out into their field, they don't know what the price they're going to get at the end of the day. It's unlike factories. It's unlike other places of business where you know what your set price is going to be before you invest. There's other issues in agriculture. We are constantly under attack by environmental groups that don't understand farming. If farmers are the most conservation-oriented people you're going to meet, as Brian mentioned, my family's been farming in this state for over 200 years. It's in our best interest to make sure that farm is in as good a shape, if not better, so we can pass it down to the next generation. Because those 76,000 farms I was talking about, 95% of those are owned and operated by families. So every dusty farm driveway you see in Kentucky, there's almost certainly at least one farm family standing behind that. And so it's so important to realize that when these environmental groups, particularly the EPA, roll out new environmental regulations that have a negative impact on agriculture, that is a real, tangible issue for farm families across Kentucky. We need to continue to push back against that. Because if you look at states like California, where their agriculture community has not been given the emphasis they deserve, their legislature literally put their poultry industry out of business overnight. They just passed enabling legislation a month ago that would regulate cow farts. Okay? It is, and I know that it's a crude term, but that is silly how policymakers are treating agriculture right now. And so that's why it's so important that we continue to educate people. At the Department of Agriculture, we have 5 main priorities. Number 1 is to continue the success of Kentucky Proud. Commissioner Comer brought it to new heights, because when people know they buy an item at a grocery store or at a community fair that has a Kentucky Proud symbol on it, they know they're supporting a local farmer or agribusiness. And so we're going to take it to new heights, because Idaho is known for its Florida, oranges. Kentucky can be known for more than just tobacco, bourbon, and Colonel Sanders. We have high-quality products in our state that we can market across our country already. Number 2, agriculture education. It's so important that we continue to get in our schools and teach kids about where their food comes from. We have great staff at the Department of Agriculture that travel the state to help bring agriculture into the classroom. International trade. Kentucky is an export-dependent state. 80% of the tobacco you see grown here in Trigg County ends up overseas. 1 in 4 rows of corn that you see being harvested this fall ends up overseas. So it's important that we speak up and make sure that if Congress considers trade deals, that Kentucky farmers benefit from those. We need to make sure that Kentucky farmers benefit on the international trade organization. And then fourth and finally, we're taking a serious look at hunger in Kentucky at Department of Agriculture. As Ag Commissioner, representing a state that has an abundance of food, we have a great farm economy. It is appalling to me that 1 in 6 Kentuckians and 1 in 5 Kentucky school children suffer from food insecurity, meaning they don't know where their next meal may come from. So at the Department of Agriculture, we are starting a conversation that includes everyone in that food distribution system, from that farmer that puts the seed in the ground to our grocery stores, to our charitable community, our restaurants, where 40% of all food that's prepared is thrown in a trash can, to have a conversation about what we can do better to serve the most vulnerable among us in our state. And finally, people sometimes don't realize that the Department of Agriculture is more than just agriculture. We're also the state's largest regulatory agency. I like to tell folks that if you fill up your tank with gas, if you fly out of a Kentucky airport, if you were to buy meat at a deli, if you were to ride an amusement ride or rent an inflatable for your backyard birthday party, it is the Department of Agriculture that plays a consumer protection role to make sure that we help protect consumers from fraudulent business transactions. And so over half of our staff is dedicated to helping protect consumers. And one thing we're doing this year that's new is that as we inspect Kentucky's 60,000 gas pumps across the state, we're also checking for credit card skimmers. Department of Agriculture is going after consumer fraud through the stealing of credit cards at gas pumps, which accounts for over $3 billion of losses from your local banks to out your credit card, out your wallet yourself. It's important to realize that Department of Agriculture just found a skimmer 3 weeks ago in central Kentucky, and so we prevented thousands of dollars of additional loss, and we're doing all this inspections at zero additional cost to the taxpayer. And so I'd like to leave you with a couple thoughts. Number one, it's a crazy elections cycle. I think that's the one thing everyone can agree on, particularly at the national level. I know it's easy to get frustrated with what's going on, particularly in the presidential race. But I've been blessed with the opportunity to travel the world a little bit. It's important to realize that we actually get a choice. There's a lot of people on this earth who don't get to choose who their leaders are. I know it's easy to get frustrated, but don't get frustrated at the process, because in the United States, we still believe in democracy, elections work, and I encourage everyone to get out and vote here in a month. And finally, it's still harvest season in Kentucky. I know we're still thrashing beans right now. Please share the road with farmers. Last month, we had 4 fatalities in our state revolving around agriculture. And a lot of it has to do with just people just being in a rush, people being on their phones when they shouldn't be. And so please share the road as we continue harvesting across the state, because farmers want to get home safely to their families just like you do. I also want to thank Raymond Oliver for letting me stay at the cabin last night. I woke up, I still have my wallet and my keys, so so it was a success. And I'd like to recognize Fred Nesler in the back. He is our eyes and ears of Western Kentucky. He worked for Commissioner Comer. He's doing a great job of being our field rep for this part of the state. If you ever need anything, contact our office. Feel free to shoot us an email. Call Fred. He'll come out and meet with you. If it's good news, call me. If it's bad, call Fred first. He'll take care of it. But as we celebrate the Hand Festival, please know that if you know a farmer, take time to say thank you to them, because every day we're blessed to get to eat 3 times a day, and sometimes a little thank you can go a long way, particularly in the agriculture community. So thank you very much. Enjoy this week. If you like to eat, thank a farmer. Thank you.